Welcome back to Under Oath. Today we're talking to actress, singer, songwriter, author, and life coach, Lisa Whelchel. Lisa, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I got to tell you, I've had so much fun tracking your career, everything you've done. And actually, I saw the new premiere of your show, Collector's Call, for the new season. And I love it. Being a geek, it was amazing. How do you even wind up getting into that?
You know, the producer, Mike Schmiedler, and I had worked together before. And so when he had this idea for the show, he reached out to me. And I loved the idea. Ironically, I'm not a collector. I'm one of those weirdos that love to move because I like to simplify. But I also love stories, and I love to hear people's stories, especially ones that are always related to their heart or their childhood. And so that's really what grabs me. But since we filmed over 100 shows, I've also have a great admiration for these collectors.
It must be humbling going into these houses where you see these huge collections, and you can't imagine the time and effort it went in to put these collections together.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and quite a lot of respect and curiosity for sure. Um, and then, some people make the mistake of even considering that this is hoarding, and it's not. I mean, there is great intention, great purpose, and amazing passion behind all of these collections, and it's contagious.
Now, the premise of the show is you explain the collection, they get some items, and then they try to trade them for other things they want. Is that basically the way that works?
Well, some of it. There's a premise of the show is they usually have, many of them have the Guinness Book of World Records. So many items, it's difficult to choose, but we narrow it down to a handful to really feature, especially the ones that have great stories behind them. And so we look at these items, the expert appraises it, we hear the story behind it, but then at the end of the show, the expert has brought an item that we know that the collector wants, and then he offers to trade it for something they already have, which is surprisingly, they don't take it that often because it means letting go of something that has such sentimental value.
The show I watched was the one, like I said, it was about the movie collectibles, the movie toys, and the figurines. And I was watching. You had a husband and wife who'd been collectors for a long time, and they had the item, and they're going, no, we're not going to do it. I mean, do you find out right then, or is it something you're aware of beforehand, or are you as shocked as we are when we see it?
No, it's right. It's right then. Yeah, I'm as shocked as everybody, and sometimes more shocked than others. That I even say, "Now, wait a minute. You sure you don't want to rethink this?"
It always cuts me up when I see how people value stuff because I write comic books. I'm an attorney. I do a bunch of shows, but I also write comic books, and I see people who are collectors and they're so sentimental, and they put these unbelievable, the value of it, the sale value could be like $200, and they want like 3,000 because they just put so much effort and pride into it. But when you bring that expert there and that expert kind of gives them the bad news about the value, I mean, do you ever feel them next to you like, oh, well, I think it's worth more than that?
Yeah, I do. I think that there is certainly, and I think part of them because they know what it took to get it and they know how rare it is. But I really respect the appraisers because they really are. They're there to give an objective opinion. That they don't bring in their feelings. So that I think it's in the long run, it's good for the collectors to really have a good sense of value. But more times than not, they're shocked at how much more valuable it is than they even realize.
I love that when I hear that because I can see their faces sometimes when they go, oh, well, that's cool. And, when you say you've done 100 shows, that means you've gone into like hundreds of homes. And, how weird is that? It's not like a set. You're actually entering people's homes. And how comfortable do you get? Is it a quick thing or it takes you a minute to get used to it?
That's a great question. I mean, I love interacting with the guests, but for one thing, I'm actually very introverted by nature. So one of the things that I have learned to do is at lunchtime just to kind of go and maybe even be in my car and just kind of regroup because it's not only the collections, but there's the massive collections. So it's everywhere. So it can feel a little bit claustrophobic for someone who's introverted by nature.
Now, I can understand that because you don't have a dressing room. I mean, it's like when I do San Diego Comic-Con, and I have an area, like, that's roped off behind my booth that nobody can see, and I go in there for, like, 10 minutes, I can breathe and recapture. I can't imagine being on the road and not having a place to go, so I guess you just hide in the car and listen to music?
I just eat my lunch and read my Kindle.
Okay, that works. I think about your career, and it's so amazing because people know you from so many different things. And, I know you probably have to do conventions every once in a while, whether it be, TV conventions or, Mickey Mouse conventions, things like that. What do you think carries, more people know you from? I know Facts of Life was huge, but Mouseketeers are pretty big too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm surprised at how many people, and it's across generations. So it depends on how old they are, because then some of the younger people actually recognize me only from when I was on Survivor. So it really, and then there's been the people that watch BTV and they recognize me from. That's really fun. The other day, I was recognized for a collector's call, which is always lovely.
Now, Survivor, I can't, I served in the Army a long time ago, and I always wondered what that environment would be like to be out there for that long. And you didn't get booted off early. You were a runner up. I mean, could you even imagine that's what it would have been like? Or were you like, yeah, I thought it would be this bad?
I mean, I went in there thinking, yeah, I'm going to do this, of course. But then within 2 days, it was like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? I am not cut out for this. So it looks a lot easier on television.
Now, one of the twists of that was they didn't know who you were. I mean, you must have been like, how are these people not figuring this out?
Yeah, there were all these young whippersnappers.
That, that,
Yeah.
that's amazing to me. I was so amused by that. But one thing I had to pick up through the process was, I run marathons and half marathons, and I know I'm hard headed. I'm not a great athlete, and that's what got me through. What do you think pushed you through to allow you to keep doing this through all the adversity?
Through Survivor,
Yeah.
or I did life in general, which is
Well, maybe
sometimes
both.
like surviving.
Maybe both.
Yeah. With Survivor, it was just like it truly was more of a point of like I'm not going to give up. I mean, I can just make it through. If I may not win, but I'm not going to give up. And so that was really knowing that option wasn't on the table. And sometimes it was just getting through. It wasn't a pretty game. It wasn't like I was always in control. A lot of times it was just like, oh my gosh, this is miserable. How many more days am I on this island? But of course, I didn't want to get voted off. So, yeah, it was rough.
I've studied your career and I've looked at exactly what you had to go through. And I know as an attorney, as things I do, there are things I can't do because they're against my own beliefs. And people say, well, attorneys could represent everybody. I don't have to represent everybody. I could say, listen, I don't like this. I'm not going to do it. And I know you've had tough times in your career where you've had to stand up and say, listen, this is against who I am. How tough is that when you're battling agents and directors and writers and everybody else who says, you do what we tell you to do?
Well, it's tough also because I really want to work. And it's really rare to have opportunities to work as an actress. And so I think what's really hard is trading one good thing for another. And, what I have to trade sometimes is the ability to work for standing, true to what I, want to give my own creativity towards and what I want to put out in the world.
It's amazing, to have that ability to just say, listen, I am who I am. I'm not going to cow down to whatever I'm dealing with. And, I know you're a life coach now and you help people on a person by person basis. There are a lot of actors and actresses who haven't been able to survive the system as well as you have. Have you ever thought about, gearing that life coaching towards other actors and actresses who, might be struggling?
I really haven't, and I think a lot, and probably because I believe that most actors and actresses have just a deep, deep passion and desire to work in this business, and I've had the privilege of enjoying that, but I don't have the deep passion and desire, and so I wouldn't be of service to them because I wouldn't be able to really. Really kind of get on board on their same on the same resonance as they do. That puts that above most everything else. And for me, I've enjoyed that part of my life, but there's so many more aspects of my life that are more important to me.
Now, I believe the company's called Contigo Life Coach. And, are people surprised? Is it hard for you to determine whether somebody's coming in as a fan or they're coming in because they need your help?
No, I mean, a lot of, I mean, there's certainly some people who come as a fan, and that might be part of the first phone call that we have. And I give them all the room in the world to get anything out of the way that they would like to, so that it's not in the middle. But truly, when somebody starts really talking about the deeper things in their life and their deeper desires and fears, and I start connecting with them on that level, thankfully, it shifts and all the focus is on them and it's not on me. And so it's really kind of out of the way.
Now, I've never been to a life coach. I have a basic idea what it might be. You know, what when people come to you, what are their basic expectations, or what are their fair expectations when they come to you for help?
That's a great question because, and I make it pretty clear up front. I'm not the kind of motivational life coach, which is, hey, here's how you can be successful and move on and accomplish your goals. There are wonderful coaches like that, and I think serve an incredible purpose. I am more about if you really want to find some deep peace, if you really want to be able to rest without the push, without the drive, and yet let the flow take over in a way that does bring to your life, into your life those things that are important to you. So I'm a little bit, I'm a less kind of moving forward and a little bit more. Let's see how you can rest and be still, and then allow what is really of your deepest heart's desire to move through you or come to you.
I can't even imagine doing what you do right now. I mean, for example, in the last couple of years, I've lost some friends to mental health issues because a lot of them aren't prepared to deal with adversity. And I don't know what the common thread is, and I don't know what I can do. I mean, do you see a change in people over the last 10, 20 years and their ability to cope with problems?
I do think, yeah, and I think it's harder. And I'm going to have to say that even for myself, I am, I'm dealing with a lot more insecurity than I have in the past. And I don't know if that has to do with the times we're living in or age, or in some ways, it's, I don't even think it's a bad thing because I think sometimes we get so armored in order to be able to survive this life that we block out, we disconnect, we numb from really being able to feel everything. And to feel everything means you got to also feel some of the difficult things. And so part of what my job as a life coach is to help my clients learn how to feel everything and realize that these difficult emotions, they come and they go. They're not going to stay. But when you start blocking off those feelings, then you also block off the ability to feel the good.
When I hear people and I see people all the time, and I think about that common denominator in the last 10, 20 years, and the only thing that keeps hitting me is social media and the need to feel connected 24/7. And it can be just exhausting. How do you advise somebody? Do you tell them, hey, listen, don't spend all this time on your phone. Try to find happiness outside of the internet.
Well, sometimes that is an issue. I do think that my husband and my husband's a psychologist, and we lead a handful of groups. And the theme this time is addictions, but there's very few people in the group that are addicted to drugs or alcohol. Many of them are addicted to other more, quote unquote, benign things like social media or shopping, or some people are even addicted in a way too much to exercise. So I think I probably am addicted to reading and learning. And it serves the same purpose, which is, okay, if I can figure out how to navigate this life in my head, then I don't have to feel the anxiety that's going on in my body. So I think there's many, many ways that we try to relieve some of the stress that's all around us. And social media is certainly a very accessible way.
Now, when you were on Facts of Life, there was no internet. There was, you had magazines, you had, variety, you had a bunch of things, and people could hit you on that. How tough do you think it is for a younger actor getting hit by millions of people at the same time?
Oh, that my heart breaks for them. Yes, you're right. It wasn't during Facts of Life, but that was bad enough just from, even the magazines and things. But when I was on Survivor, it was during social media, and I really had to be careful about going on there because everybody has an opinion, and you can't please everybody. And so many times the people who are posting, they're really posting from their own hurt, and they just, in order to get it out of them, they put it on somebody else, but it really does hurt.
What would you advise somebody who deals with a lot of negativity? How do they, find peace?
Well, I would say, find, pay attention to what does bring you joy, and make room for that in your life. And that sounds really easy. But oftentimes the things we do is we just make room for what we need to in order to survive, in order to make money, in order to just take care of things in life. And it's sometimes difficult to really make room for the things that bring you joy. I'd also say make room for silence and stillness. Fancy word for it would be meditation, but it doesn't have to be meditation. You can simply just sit outside and listen to the birds, or just go for a walk, but have some silence and stillness in your mind, and that does wonders as well.
One of the last questions I want to ask you, because I talk to a lot of actors and musicians, and whether you are in a big band or on a big show, your connections with the people on these shows sometimes falls apart. You lose track and everything else like that. Have you been able to keep these relationships years later with the people you've been on set with?
Yeah, we do. We all live in different parts of the country, and our lives are all very busy. But when we do get back together, it's really, just like friends you had in college, and you just pick up where you left off.
When you do a convention, are you excited when you see somebody who you were on the show with? Oh yeah, she's going to be there. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really fun. It's definitely like seeing old friends.
Well, we've got about a little less than a minute left. Why don't you tell me how we can see your show and how we can hook up on social media with you?
Yeah, it's on MeTV Sunday night, 6:30, 5:30 Central. You can go to metv.com, and there's a place for you to click on where to watch to see where it's showing in your area and what streaming service. And also, you can follow me, Lisa Whelchel, on Instagram, or Collector's Call on Instagram, or MeTV for that matter, and learn some of the upcoming shows. And we've got some really, really fun upcoming shows.
Well, it was so great talking to you, and thank you for everything you've given to my life and all the other fans out there.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about the show.